Welcome to Motivate to Millions podcast. I am your host, Quinton Baker, and today is our first initial inaugural episode of Motivate to Millions podcast. I am so excited to launch this podcast as I know that it will bring value and motivate to millions, just like the title. So again, today I'm your host, Quinton Baker, and we're going to hit a topic and then I'll share a little bit about myself. Also, I want to share what our three motives here at Motivate to Millions is, which is influence, income, and impact. Want to make sure you use your influence to help make more income to leave a lasting impact. In everything we do, we should try to leave an impact. So Motivate to Millions was birthed from experiences and lessons. I always say sometimes $1 million lessons will help you gain millions of dollars later, or whatever your millions look like per se to you. I will say that Motivate to Millions is just like the title. Our first initiative and goal is to motivate individuals to not lose sight of who they are and what they aspire to do, their goals, dreams, and visions, and like staying inspired and motivated, keeping that zeal to go after what you know you're called to do. Not only that, you got 2 millions. Motivate 2 millions, millions of people. That's what we aspire to do. Motivate to millions. Today, I'm going to be talking about how not to lose yourself in the midst of what you do. I myself am guilty of this. How many times do you get so engaged with what you do that you forget who you are? I myself have did this because I have did many different roles. Just a brief background for me, explaining is I've had roles in corrections, law enforcement, sales, uh, car industry, human services, insurance, which I'm currently in insurance now. But as an agent, I've worked in insurance claim. I've worked many different roles, and all of those um, I have learned something from. Some of them I enjoyed more than others, but all of them I've learned something for literally this moment. So it's added some level of value in my timeline, in my life. And I'm so grateful for that. But I know for a fact, myself personally, that I have lost myself in the midst of what I do. And it can be very daunting because your language begins to be everything about what you do. I remember when I sold cars. I remember just trying to figure out how to navigate the sales arena with selling cars and my language and how should I respond, because you're always facing objection in sales. So I was really navigating that to the point where I didn't do the things that I used to do. Like I used to do encouraging posts in the morning. I used to uh, read more. I used to just do a lot of things. And some of that piece of that personal development of going after the thing that I want to do in the future, I kind of lost that in the midst of what I was doing. So it's very easy to lose who you are with what you do. So I'm speaking to that person today that maybe you're doing something today and maybe let's just say you're the one that's passionate about what you do, but that's not all it is to you. Like you're more than just this. You're more than a salesman. You're more than an insurance agent. You're more than just the employee at this company or firm. You're more. And that's what we're going after. We're motivating to more today. That's what we're doing. Motivating to more by not forgetting who you are in the midst of what you do. I can't say that enough because it just hits me. because it's I'll do it this way. I was watching an interview with Shannon Sharp, and I personally I like Shannon Sharp um, because we have very relatable backgrounds. He comes from a rural area. I come from a rural area. He's raised by older people. I was primarily, kind of raised by older people. My grandmother uh, taught me very great work ethic through um, sharecropping. I did not like sharecropping at the time, but I understood the value of what she was teaching me. Um, Now, I didn't quite understand it as much then. I just, do as you're told. But man, what an impact did she leave for me uh, in this world now that I can really um, live off the fruits of what she taught me, and just good work ethic, being on time, doing what you say you're going to do. And that's kind of where Shannon Sharp's interview was leading towards, just explaining his background and the then, the now, and how we got to this point. And I would say one of the phrases he said was, a lot of people were surprised that he's reached the success he has in the media industry because he's a former athlete, and not just an athlete, a Hall of Fame athlete. And most people in the sports world don't cross over, and cross over so well. I mean, he's excelled. He's the number one YouTube channel on YouTube. So that says a lot. And what he said in the interview was, people forgot that football is what I did, but it is not necessarily who I am. In essence, there's more to Shannon Sharp than just football. As I think about that, I'll speak to you that may be listening today. There is more to you. Again, there is more to you than just what you do today. And what you do today may not even be what you do tomorrow. So just remember, there's more to you, and never forget that. And don't let other people allow you to forget that. So essentially, in this interview, he was just speaking about what was his drive, his motivation to be successful, even as just an athlete. And it was his grandma, his granny, which he refers to as his granny, but uh, getting his granny out of a one room shack. You know, essentially, they grew up very poor in rural Georgia. And I I connected with that so much because I know what it looks like, how it feels to work off of a little bit, working off of a little bit so much that it doesn't even look realistic that you're able to live. I looking at people in my family, especially my grandmother, being so older and having so much strength, and honestly being good with money, a good steward of money, even though she didn't have a lot. She had a lot in her mind. She had a lot in her heart. She had a lot to pour out. And I think that's the same thing for Shannon Sharp, how, he looked up to his grandmother as well as his grandfather, them imparting uh, those foundational wisdom principles have just got him to this day today of the success you see today. And I'll say that even to the audience, those that may be listening today, that don't think your foundation is not making room for your future. It may not look like it today. It even may be um, sometimes daunting or even sometimes depressing, but don't give up. We have to stay motivated to know that all things are working for our good. Even though sometimes it may not look like it, feel like it, it's working for our good. And I had another point I wanted to make about, the main topic, which is not losing who you are with what you do, is I was speaking with a person the other day, and it was a quick catch up. Hadn't talked as much lately, but I noticed a particular thing. We were talking, catching up on what we're doing and XYZ. But the thing I noticed is when I asked, "How are you doing?" the person responded more on a business surface. And I guess I was thinking more of like, okay, hit the business surface, but how are you doing personally? How are you doing outside of just the business? That's where I was like, man, my antennas raised up. I was like, ding, ding, ding. Man, we lose. That's where this came from. We lose so much of who we are with what we do. And I was like, man, he just hit the success in the business or the business points, but I don't know how he's doing personally. And I wish I would have actually dug more into that moment. But nevertheless, it was just so eye opening that, that's what happens oftentimes. And, you have to have a level of law of separation, in my opinion, that the business or the thing that you do is not solely who you are. That, you can be so laser focused that you miss everything else. And it's great to be laser focused. It's great to be focused. But making sure that you don't miss everything else around you. I oftentimes myself have been so focused on the future that I miss the present. Focus on the future so bad that I miss the present. And while it's great to be preparing for the future, it's just essential that you live in the present as well. Enjoy the moments. Listen to your family, like be there. To be successful in business, or I'll even say, because I come from a deep church background, to be successful in church, to be successful in business or ministry, and not be successful at home is basically not having any success at all. So it's very key that you prioritize your life in a way that you don't miss the mark when it looks like you're hitting the mark. That conversation was eye-opening. It was eye-opening, and I'm not judging who I was talking to at all, but it was just eye-opening for me, and eye-opening that people may be in this same position. But it's essential just not to lose who you are. And the ways you do that is that you have to know where you're going, know why you're doing it, but also making sure you're staying in tune and connected to where you're at now and who you are now. Granted, what you aspire to be, make sure you're living in the present. I'm glad if you're not living in the past. That's definitely a great thing, but make sure you live in the present and look towards the future, not live in the future and miss the present. That's just a side note for me, a tip for me. One of the things I learned, like I said, this platform is built definitely out of lessons and experiences. And I have to share this to you because it's vital. It's vital in the time we live in, particularly in my generation. I feel that we have one of the biggest opportunities right now in life because we have so much at our disposal. We have so much technology, resources that my grandmother didn't have, my grandfather didn't have, my parents didn't have, that I have. So I was talking to another gentleman the other day. I get caught up on my age that I'm 33. I feel like I'm I guess I get to the point where I'm like, I'm getting older. It's setting in for me. And granted, some people may say, you're still young. You're young, man. You're young. But for me, it's knowing that time is of the essence and tomorrow is not promised to anyone. And time is the one thing we can't buy back or get back. And that's very important to me because I don't have time to waste so that I can use my influence to make enough income to be able to, one, take care of my family and put us in a better position than where we have been left off. Not knocking my parents or my they just did not have certain things we have today. For me, I look at it as an obligation to pick up where they left off, to be the best version of myself, produce the most that I can with what I have and that what God has put within me. It is my obligation to do that because I've been granted this life. I've been granted time that a lot of people don't have anymore. That's very important to me. Lastly, I want to leave an impact in my family that will succeed me for generations. I don't want to just be a talker. I want to be a doer. I want to start something and I want to finish it. And then I want it to go on to become bigger and better. But just knowing that I have put my relatives, knowing that I'll put my future children and grandchildren in place to be successful, not just in finance and in business, in investments, but in life. It's not enough to just leave money behind, but you have to leave instruction. I think that's the missing link in our generation today. There's no real instruction. We have access, but not enough instruction and not enough discipline. So this is very important to me. I aspire to motivate to millions of people and motivate millions of people to their millions. That's my drive because I know that it's possible. And I know also that it's easy to lose sight. So as you tuned in today to this episode, the inaugural episode of Motivate to Millions, I hope that this left a lasting impact, that you'll feel motivated to your millions, whatever your millions look like. Thank you again for tuning in to this episode of Motivate to Millions. I am your host, Quinton Baker. Thank you. Now let's go motivate. Peace.